What? What do I?
Yeah.
Oh, I want a new Porsche.
I want $17 million.
Oh, I want $18 million.
Well, my life dream is to be able to help people in some sort of service-oriented business, but still make money and not have to swindle anybody.
I'd really like to get to do work that I really love, earn a great income at it, have a beautiful house by the ocean,
Do you have a dream?
have lots of friends.
If
that
you
are
could do
artists,
anything
be
you
an
wanted to
artist.
do and have everything you've always wanted,
And-
do you know what it would be? Think about that. See if you can form a mental image of your ideal life. And then answer this question. What's stopping you? If you can dream it, why aren't you doing it? This is The Magic of Thinking Big, a plan for personal success by Dr. David Schwartz, one of America's foremost experts on motivation. David Schwartz is president of Creative Educational Services Incorporated, and he's a professor at Georgia State University. He's presented his ideas at thousands of conventions, management seminars, professional meetings, and clinics. And he's also helped thousands of people work better, sell better, manage better, earn more money, find greater happiness and personal satisfaction. On these tapes, David Schwartz will show you how to think big, how to believe in yourself, how to overcome enemies of success such as fear, excusitis, and self-doubt. You'll learn effective confidence-building techniques and how to turn defeats and setbacks into victories. You'll discover how to make your attitudes your allies for achieving success. And David Schwartz will show you how to think and act like a leader. So to start you on your road to success, here is David Schwartz.
Success means many wonderful, positive things. Success means personal prosperity, financial security, a better life for you and your family. Success means finding real happiness and real satisfaction from life. Success, for those with the courage to pursue it, is the goal of life. At the outset, keep in mind that the size of your success is limited only by the size of your thinking. If you think small, with small ideas and small ambitions, then your success in turn will be small. But if you think big and believe in yourself, then your success will also be big. And here's the good news. No matter who you are, or what you are, or where you are right now, you can start thinking big. You can travel the road to big success. In fact, that's what you're doing at this very moment. You are taking your first giant step toward learning and applying the magic of thinking big to your life. Thinking big begins with believing big. You know, one of the greatest pieces of success-building wisdom is found in that biblical quotation that says, "Faith can move mountains." That is the essence of believing big. When you tell yourself, "I'm positive I can," then your attitude, your belief, generates the power, the energy, and the skill to get the job done. Just listen for a moment to these two voices.
Ooh, that's a really big project. I don't know. I think it's a little bit too broad. The scope is too big for this department. Maybe what we should do is call in an outside consultant on this one.
Wow, this is really great. This kind of assignment is really going to make this department grow. This is what we've really been looking for. We need the challenge to stretch, and I give you my personal guarantee you'll get 150% out of us.
The difference between these two statements is belief. The first voice was a person who didn't believe in himself and who won't take on anything that looks bigger than his own petty view. The second person believed she could do it, and I'll give you my personal guarantee that because she believed she could do it, she got the job done. You see, belief is like a thermostat that regulates what we accomplish in life. Study the person that's just shuffling along down there in the mud of mediocrity. He believes that he's worth very little, and so he receives very little, and he accomplishes very little. His lack of belief in himself shows through in the way he walks, the way he talks, and the way he acts. Unless he can readjust his belief thermostat forward, his image of himself is going to continue to shrink. And since others see in us exactly what we see in ourselves, he will grow smaller in the estimation of the people around him as well. But now look at the person who is advancing forward. This person believes he's worth a great deal, and so he receives a great deal. He believes he can handle big, important, difficult assignments, and so he can, and so he does. In fact, everything the big thinker does, the way he handles himself with people, his thoughts, his viewpoints, all say, here is a professional. Here is an important person.
Your mind is a thought factory. It's a factory that produces thousands of thoughts each day. There are 2 foremen in charge of your factory. One of them is named Mr. Triumph, and the other is named Mr. Defeat. Mr. Triumph is in charge of manufacturing positive thoughts. He specializes in producing reasons why you can do things, why you're qualified, why you will succeed. Mr. Defeat is in charge of negative thought production. He's your expert on developing reasons why you can't succeed, why you're weak or inadequate. To see how these 2 foremen work for you, try this. Say to yourself, it's a lousy day. This thought signals Mr. Defeat into action, and he immediately manufactures thoughts to prove that you're right. It's too hot, or it's too cold, or business looks bad today, sales will drop, you don't feel like dealing with customers, you have a headache, your wife or your husband was in a bad mood this morning. Mr. Defeat is amazingly efficient. In just a few minutes, he's done his job so well that you're completely convinced that this is a really bad day. But now tell yourself, this is a fine day, and this time Mr. Triumph is signaled into action, and he tells you, yes, indeed, it's a wonderful day. The weather's refreshing. It's good to be alive. You can catch up on all that work today. It's a pleasure to be doing business on a day like this. And before you know it, it is a good day. Mr. Defeat will tell you why you can't land the Mortimer account. Mr. Triumph will tell you why you can. Mr. Defeat will tell you why you don't deserve the promotion and why you shouldn't even bother to try for it. Mr. Triumph will show you why no one else on earth is more qualified for that job than you are. Mr. Defeat will help you prepare a brilliant case against the guy you work with. He'll show you why he's impossible to be around and how he makes your life miserable. Mr. Triumph will show you his positive qualities and help you find ways to make your association with him succeed. The more you work with either of these foremen, the stronger they become, and the more space they take up in your mind. If you give Mr. Defeat more work, he'll take up more and more of the space, so that eventually your thought factory is producing nothing but negative thoughts. But if you give Mr. Triumph the work, then your thought factory will produce the thoughts that will propel you towards success. In fact, you can fire Mr. Defeat. You'll discover that you really don't need him at all. You can use Mr. Triumph 100% of the time and produce only positive, productive thoughts. The result of this kind of thought production is the most basic ingredient in personal success: self-belief.
A few years ago, I heard a remarkable story from an executive who talked to me after I addressed a group of business people in Atlanta. He told me that he had a personal experience that tied in perfectly with my talk that evening, and he wanted to share it with me. So we went to a coffee shop and made ourselves comfortable, and this is what he told me.
About 5 years ago, I was just plodding along. I had sort of an average job in an average place. I was living in St. Louis. I have a wife and 3 kids, and really wasn't very happy with my life. And something changed in me that I wanted to tell you about. It really directly related to what you were saying this evening. There was a job offer that came up in Atlanta for a little bit better money than I was getting at the time. And I thought, why not? I'll go down and check it out. And I went down there, and in my hotel room the night before, I started thinking, why am I knocking myself out for this little measly pay raise, coming to Atlanta, relocating everything, uprooting my wife and kids, And I started thinking about friends that I had that were doing a lot better than I was, people that had lived near me or people that I had known in my business, and they were doing much better than I was. And I thought, what's different about them? And I actually sat down and started making a list of characteristics that they had and characteristics that I had, and I couldn't come up with anything really that they had that I didn't have. They weren't better educated, they weren't smarter than I was, they didn't have any better connections, and then it finally hit me. The difference was self-belief. It was faith in myself, and I didn't have that. I had been convincing myself and preaching to myself that I didn't deserve it, that I wasn't any good, or that I was average. I had never let myself believe that I could really be a success. That was a revelation to me. It was hard to accept that at first, but once I realized that was what was holding me back, it was like this big weight lifted off. It was incredible. My whole life changed. It was really that remarkable. I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning going over this stuff. I went into the interview the next morning, 9 a.m. I wasn't the least bit tired. In fact, I was still jazzed. I was totally charged up. And I went in and I asked for half again as much money as I had planned to. And because I had self-belief and because I had confidence, they gave me the job. Since then, I'm one of the top guys in the firm, and I've really established myself as somebody who can bring in the business. And the firm reorganized 3 years ago. I got a huge bonus, a stock option, and a salary increase. Everything has just been going up and up since then. I realized that it was that discovery that night that I made, my discovery of my own self-worth and my belief in myself that made the difference. Like everyone says, you can't sell a product if you don't believe in it. And it's the same with yourself. Now, I believe in myself.
That's a remarkable story, and it's not unique. Time and time again, people have proven they can change their lives. They can increase their earning power, improve their self-esteem, change their self-image, sell themselves better, live better, be happier, and achieve greater success. And it all starts with self-belief. There are examples of the power of belief all around you. Today we fly on jet airliners because back at the turn of the century, two bicycle mechanics, Orville and Wilbur Wright, believed in themselves and their ideas. Astronauts landed on the moon in 1969, one of the greatest achievements in the history of mankind, because of the skill and determination of thousands of dedicated people. And those people were all inspired by the words and leadership of one man, John F. Kennedy, who had the power of self-belief. Right now, today, more people are becoming millionaires in America than ever before. Contrary to the Mr. and Mrs. Defeats of this world, the fact is there are more opportunities for success and big achievement right now than ever before in history. This is a fabulous, wonderful time to be alive, and you can make the most of it if you begin by believing in yourself. So I want to offer you a guide for developing the power of self-belief. It goes like this.
Number 1, think success. Don't think failure. At work, at home, with business associates, or with family and friends, substitute success thinking for failure thinking. When you face a difficult situation, think, I'll win, not I'll probably lose. When you compete with someone else, think, I'm equal to the best, not I'm outclassed. When opportunity appears, think, I can do it, never I can't. Let the master thought, I will succeed, dominate your thinking process. Thinking success conditions your mind to create plans that produce success. But thinking failure does the exact opposite. It produces failure. Number 2, remind yourself frequently that you are better than you think you are. Successful people are not superhuman. Success does not require genius. There's nothing mystical or lucky about success either. Successful people are just ordinary folks who have developed belief in themselves and what they do. So never, never sell yourself short. Third, believe big. The size of your success is determined by the size of your belief. Think little goals and expect little achievements. Think big goals and win big success. And remember this, big ideas and big plans are often easier and certainly no more difficult than small ideas and small plans.
I want to give you a quote from Ralph J. Corner, who said this at a leadership conference when he was chairman of the board of General Electric. He said, "We need from every person who aspires to leadership a determination to undertake a personal program of self-development. Nobody is going to order a person to develop. Whether a person lags behind or moves ahead in his specialty is a matter of his own personal application. This is something that takes time, work, and sacrifice. Nobody can do it for you." Now that, my friends, is good advice. Start living that advice. People who reach the top rungs in business, engineering, selling, law, real estate, medical care, people who reach the top rungs in any pursuit get there by following conscientiously and continually a plan for self-development and growth. That's exactly what these tapes are about. Now, any plan for success has to have three components. The first is the what component. You've got to know what it is you're trying to do. The second is the how component. How do you go about accomplishing your goals? And the third component is the payoff, results. In this plan for success that you're developing now, the what component is built on the attitudes and techniques of successful people. How do they manage themselves? How do they overcome obstacles? How do successful people earn the respect of others? Now, the how of this plan for self-development and growth is a series of concrete guides for action, like the one you've just heard for developing self-belief. You'll be hearing more of these. Let me emphasize that these guides work. They've been proven countless of times by thousands of people. I urge you to try them and see for yourself. This leads to the third component, results. Let me tell you what results you can expect, and I assure you that conscientious application of this plan will achieve them. Your personal training program for success will bring you greater respect from your friends and family. It'll bring you the admiration of your business associates, greater status, increased income, and a higher standard of living. Think of this plan as an experiment, and you're the scientist in charge. You already have a fully equipped laboratory in which to work and study. That laboratory is all around you. It consists of the people in your life, the people you see on the street, the people you work with, the people you live with, and of course, yourself. This laboratory is rent-free, and there is no limit to the amount of time you can spend in it, nor to what you can learn from it. So, as the director of this laboratory, you'll want to conduct some observations and experiments. I want to give you an experiment to start with right now.
To conduct this experiment, pick the two people you know that you feel are the most successful. If you want to, jot their names down in the booklet. And then pick the two most unsuccessful people that you know. And as you follow this plan for self-development and success, come back to this set of names and observe how the principles and ideas that you'll be hearing apply to these people. Anytime you run across an attribute or a practice that pertains to successful people, recall the names you've picked and see who it best applies to. And do the same for the unsuccessful attributes that you'll be hearing. For example, self-belief is the important attribute of successful people that David Schwartz has described. Which of the people you've picked does it apply to? If your experiment bears out the results of others who've conducted it, you'll notice that successful people adhere to the techniques and methods of positive, big thinking, while unsuccessful people display the attributes of self-defeat and mediocrity.
Now, one of the first attributes I think you'll consistently notice among unsuccessful people is a disease that is one of the biggest enemies of success. I call this disease excusitis. Here's what excusitis sounds like.
I don't know if I can do this job. I mean, this is really out of my league. I'm not a genius, you know.
Well, I'd like to take on more of the work that would really be important to me, but I really don't see where I have the time to do it. I'm really rushed now just to finish the work that I already have. I can't imagine how I would find more hours in the day to finish more work.
You know what they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and believe me, this old dog is just too far along to start anything new at this point.
Look, with my health the way it is, I just do what I can to get by. I'm not about to press my luck and give myself a heart attack.
Sounds pretty awful, doesn't it? And if you looked at the lives, ambitions, and accomplishments of these people, I can tell you what you'd find. Not much. A lot of mediocrity. In case after case, excusitis is the difference between the person who is going places and the person who is going nowhere. You'll find that the more successful a person is, the less that person makes excuses for anything. Now, this disease of excusitis comes in several forms, and like most diseases, it gets worse if it isn't treated. A victim of this thought disease thinks like this: I'm not doing so well. What can I use as an alibi that'll help me save face? Let's see, poor health, lack of education, too old, the way my family brought me up. And each time this person uses an excuse, it becomes more deeply embedded in his subconscious. Probably when he first used the excuse, he realized that it was just an alibi or a lie. But the more he uses it, the more he believes it, until he is convinced that the excuse is the real reason for his lack of progress. So right now, I want you to vaccinate yourself against excusitis, the disease of failure. There are a number of types of this disease, and when you listen to what follows, you'll find out how to protect yourself against each of them.
Well, I'd like to take on more of the work that would really be important to me, but I really don't see where I have the time to do it. I'm really rushed now just to finish the work that I already have. I can't imagine how I would find more hours in the day to finish more work.
First, let's deal with what may be the most common form of excusitis: time. You hear this one everywhere. I don't have time, or not now, I'm too busy. People who make this excuse are saying, it takes every minute I've got just to keep up, so how do you expect me to put out the extra effort it takes to get ahead? But there's a basic fallacy in this excuse, and this is it. Everybody, whether you're the president of a big company or the paper boy, everybody has exactly the same amount of time. You and I both have 24 hours a day, 168 hours a week, no more, no less. The question is, what do you do with your time?
Most people spend about 51 hours a week sleeping and about 50 hours a week at work, counting commuting time. So far, that's 101 hours. On average, people spend about 15 hours a week eating, figuring 2 hours a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a few minutes here and there for snacks. That's 116 hours. Now throw in 24 hours a week for relaxing, reading, watching television, playing with the kids, making love with your spouse, and getting some exercise. That makes 140 hours. And on top of that, throw in 4 hours a week for going to church or watching a football game. That makes 144 hours. But remember, there are 168 hours in a week. So even after we've eaten, slept, worked, played, made love, and even watched a lot of television, we've still got 24 hours left over. You could watch another 6 hours of television a week and still have 18 hours unaccounted for.
So where do people get this excuse, I haven't got enough time? There is just no truth to the statement. It simply is an alibi for mediocrity, for failing to give yourself the chance to succeed. Successful people don't say, I don't have time. Successful people welcome new challenges, and they find the time to meet them. There's an old business axiom that says if you want something done, find the busiest person you can and get them to do it. The truth in that axiom is this: a busy person, a successful person, won't hide behind an excuse. That person wants challenges, wants more business, wants that additional assignment, because a successful person knows that success is a direct product of extra effort. So, if you suffer from time excusitis, the cure is simple. Mind you, it's not necessarily easy, but it is simple. Here it is.
Resolve now never to say, I don't have the time, or I'm too busy. Always seek ways to accommodate new challenges in your job, or special assignments, or extra time with your family. You may find yourself slipping back into the excuse from time to time, but if you do, catch yourself. When you're about to say, I don't have time, change your mind. It often helps to budget your time, just like you might budget your money. Sit down and write out a time plan. Strive to become that busy person that people seek out for special challenges, instead of another victim of excusitis. Remember, everyone has the same amount of time. The difference is in how you use it.
Look, with my health the way it is, I just do what I can to get by. I'm not about to press my luck and give myself a heart attack.
Another prominent form of excusitis is health. This ranges all the way from the chronic, I don't feel good, to the more specific, I've got such and such wrong with me. So-called bad health in 1,000 different forms is used as an excuse for failing to do what a person wants to do, failing to accept greater responsibilities, failing to make more money, failing to achieve success. Millions and millions of people suffer from health problems. But is this really a legitimate excuse in most cases? Consider for a moment the other side of the coin. The people who become fabulously successful in spite of health problems and who didn't use health as an excuse.
Franklin D. Roosevelt was confined to a wheelchair much of the time by polio, but he still served nearly 4 terms as president. John F. Kennedy was hampered by severe and sometimes crippling back pain, but he never publicly complained. Itzhak Perlman, one of the world's great violinists, has to walk with the aid of crutches. Arthur Ashe, the tennis champion, had his athletic career tragically foreshortened by heart trouble, but he went on to great success in business. There are scores of successful people in every walk of life who suffer from diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and other so-called debilitating diseases, but they don't use them as excuses. The point is simply that your physical condition doesn't need to hold you back, and for most people, health is simply no excuse for lack of success. Doctors will tell you that the perfect specimen of the human animal simply doesn't exist. There's something physically wrong with everybody. Many people surrender, in whole or in part, to health excusitis, but successful people don't.
The more you worry about your health, the worse you're going to feel. Not only that, but the more you tell other people about your bad health problems, the worse you're going to make them feel too. You see, whenever you tell someone, I feel rotten today, or I have a headache, you're really telling them, I'm a little bit dead today. And nobody, but nobody, wants to be around a dead person. The plain truth is, there are only 2 people in the world who really want to hear you complain about your health problems. One is your doctor, and the other is your mortician. Nobody else cares. Nobody else wants to hear about your bad health. Now look at the other side. When you tell someone, I feel great, look what happens. First, you make yourself feel better. Try it right now, and you'll see what I mean. Say out loud, I feel great. Come on now, say it. I feel great. It's impossible to say that and not actually feel better. Second, you make the other person feel better when you tell them how great you feel. And third, you make them feel better toward you. When anyone asks me how I'm feeling, I automatically tell them that I feel so good I can hardly stand it, and if I felt any better, I'd be worried. This makes people laugh, but it also makes me feel better, because how you feel is a product of how you think you feel. So now is the time to cure yourself from the disease of health excusitis forever. Here's how to do it.
The vaccine against health excusitis comes in 4 doses. First, refuse to talk about your health. Talking about your bad health is like putting fertilizer on weeds, and besides that, it bores people. Success-minded people defeat the tendency to complain about their health. Second, refuse to worry about your health. If you have a problem, see your doctor, but don't worry about it. It won't make things any better. It will just make things worse. Third, be genuinely grateful that your health is as good as it is. Remember the old saying, "I felt sorry for myself because I had no shoes, until I met a man who had no feet." There's always somebody worse off than you are, so be glad for the good health that you do have, and don't dwell on your health problems. Finally, remind yourself that it's better to wear out than to rust out. Life is yours to enjoy 24 hours a day. Don't waste it. Don't pass up living by thinking yourself into a hospital bed.
You know what they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and believe me, this old dog is just too far along to start anything new at this point.
Age excusitis is a failure disease of never being the right age to succeed. It comes in 2 forms: I'm too old or I'm too young. How many times have you heard someone say, I'm too old to start a new career now, or I'm too young for all that responsibility? In fact, how often have you heard yourself say it? This excuse has closed the door of real opportunity to thousands of people. They think their age is somehow wrong, so they don't even bother to try. And, unfortunately, we live in a society that seems all too ready to reinforce those stereotypes. On any night, on TV, you can see old people put out to pasture and young people biting off more than they can chew. These statistics we read in the paper continually tell us how hard it is to find a job when you're 60 or when you're 19. But the fact is, for every statistic and every dramatization of these so-called problem ages, you can find real-life exceptions to the rules. Ronald Reagan was elected president just prior to his 70th birthday. Harlan Sanders was collecting Social Security checks when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Satchel Paige was playing professional baseball well into his 50s, but he didn't talk about his age. On the other end of the age spectrum, Apple Computer was started by 2 young men in their 20s, and the founder of Federal Express thought up the idea for his express mail service when he was in college. So age is no barrier. It is just an excuse. If you think you're too old to change or too young to accept the challenge, here's a cure.
Look at your present age positively. Think, I'm still young, instead of I'm too old. Remember, you're capable of handling any responsibility you believe you can handle. Second, keep this computation in mind. Most people can expect about 50 years of productive working life, from about age 20 to about age 70. If you're 30, you've still got 80% of that productive life ahead of you. If you're 40, you've still got a big 60% of your working life to go. If you're 50, you've still got 40%, at least 20 years of productivity, and that's plenty of time to succeed. Finally, invest your future time in doing what you really want to do. It's only too late when you let your mind become negative and tell you it's too late. Stop thinking, I should have started years ago, because that's failure thinking. Instead, think, I'm going to start now. My best years are ahead of me. That's the way successful people think.
I don't know if I can do this job. I mean, this is really out of my league. I'm not a genius, you know.
I think the most insidious of all the excuse diseases is intelligence excusitis. It's the feeling that I'm not quite smart enough, or other people know something I don't. Unlike the other maladies we've discussed, people tend to suffer this one in silence. Nobody wants to talk about how dumb they feel, but they feel it deep down inside, and it blocks their road to success. Most of us, you see, make two basic errors with respect to intelligence. One, we vastly underestimate our own brain power, and two, we vastly overestimate the intelligence of other people. Because of these two mistakes, we sell ourselves short, and we fail to take advantage of many opportunities. Some years ago, Dr. Edward Teller, the famous physicist who's called the father of the atomic bomb, was asked what a young person needed to know to become a successful scientist. Teller said, and I quote, "A child does not need a lightning-fast mind to be a scientist, nor does he need a miraculous memory, nor is it necessary that he gets very high grades in school. The only point that counts is that the child have a high degree of interest in science." Interest and enthusiasm are the critical factors, not intelligence. Another way of putting it is simply to say it's not how much intelligence you have that counts, it's how you use the intelligence you have. Let me give you another example. I was at a college class reunion a while back, and I met a fellow I hadn't seen for about 25 years. His name was Chuck. He was one of the brightest people I've ever met, and he graduated with honors. The last time I talked to him, he had a goal of someday owning his own business. So when I saw him at the reunion, I asked him, "How's your business going?"
Well, David, to tell you the truth, I never really went into business for myself. You know what I did? I used my college education to become an expert in why my business ideas wouldn't work out. Yeah, I learned all the pitfalls of businesses, all the reasons why you might fail. And, you have to be sure you have plenty of capital, the business cycle is right, you have to make sure there's enough demand for your product, the local industry is stabilized, there's 1,001 things to check out. So here I am today, I'm still auditing freight shipments and just plodding along, working for somebody else, and it's not really doing me a lot of good. And I see friends of mine from high school who went out right after high school, and they're doing successful business straight from high school. There's got to be a reason for that.
Do you see Chuck's dilemma? The thinking that guided his intelligence was far more significant than the amount of intelligence he has. If you study the world around you, you'll find a lot of highly successful people with very average IQs, and you'll also find a lot of failures who are brilliant. The difference is one of attitude. What are these people using their brain power for? To defeat themselves or to find ways to succeed? There's one more point I want to make before we summarize the cures for this disease of intelligence excusitis. Another common mistake that people make with regard to intelligence is to equate piles of facts with useful brain power. But it's far more important to use those brain cells for thinking and analyzing than it is for memorizing. Someone once asked Albert Einstein, "How many feet are there in a mile?" Einstein replied, "I don't know. Why should I fill my head with facts that I can find in 2 minutes in any reference book?" Einstein, as usual, was right. You can always find facts. You can't always find good, positive thinking. That you've got to learn for yourself. So here's a cure for intelligence excusitis.
First, never underestimate your own intelligence, and never overestimate the intelligence of others. Don't sell yourself short. Concentrate on your assets. Discover your superior talents. Remember, it's not the amount of intelligence you have that counts. It's how you use what you've got. Learn to effectively manage your brains instead of worrying about your IQ. Secondly, constantly remind yourself, my attitudes are more important than my intelligence. At work and at home, practice positive attitudes. See the reasons why you can do it, not the reasons why you can't. Put your intelligence to creative, positive use. Find ways to win, not ways to lose. Finally, remember that the ability to think is much more valuable than the ability to memorize facts. Use your mind to create and develop ideas, to seek solutions, to find new and better ways of doing things.
So far, we've talked about belief as a basic ingredient of success, and we've talked about excusitis as a major cause of failure. Now I want to state for you the most important single concept in your plan for personal success. Where success is concerned, people are not measured in inches or pounds or college degrees or family background. They are measured by the size of their thinking. How big we think determines the size of our accomplishments. So what we are going to do now is to enlarge your thinking. The first step in this process is to clear away some of the obstacles to thinking big. One of the first ones is self-deprecation. That is, the tendency to run ourselves down or sell ourselves short. This is a very common failure, and many, many people condemn themselves to a life of mediocrity by refusing to believe in their own abilities and their own self-worth. But I can prove to you right now, by way of another experiment in your people laboratory, that you are many times more accomplished, smarter, and better than you think you are. Here's the experiment.
First, think of your 3 major assets. These can be anything that you know that you're good at. You may be well organized, or a good listener, or perhaps you're good at creative solutions to everyday problems. Whatever these are, think of 3 positive attributes that you give yourself credit for. Now, considering each asset in turn, one at a time, think of at least 2 people that you know who you consider more successful than yourself, but who you feel do not have that particular asset to the degree that you do. For example, maybe your coworker got a promotion last month, but you didn't. But if you think about it, you're a better problem solver than that person is. Do this process for each of the 3 assets you've chosen. And once you've done that, consider this conclusion. You've just identified at least 6 people who are now more successful than you, and in at least one area, you're better than all of them. So the next time you're selling yourself short, recall this experiment and enlarge your thinking. It's important to keep in mind that there's nothing abstract or mystical about learning to think big. It's a very concrete, practical process, and there are specific things you can do to develop the skill. For example, consider the way you speak. Now, words are the raw materials of thought. When you hear words or read words, your mind automatically converts them into images. And when you're doing the speaking or the writing, you're acting as a kind of projector, in effect showing movies in the minds of others. The pictures that you create will determine the reactions to what you're saying. For example, let's suppose you're in a group of people at work, and a supervisor comes before your group and says, "Well, I'm sorry to say that this project has failed." Now, what's your group going to see from these words? What kind of images will you get? You'll see images of disappointment and defeat, inspired by that word, failed. But now let's suppose the supervisor comes before the group and says, "I've got a new approach here that I really believe will work, and I'd like to get your feedback on it." Now, this is a response that will easily fit the same situation, but the supervisor has not created any negative images. Instead, he's created positive ones. The group feels encouraged. They're ready to try again. By the same token, if the supervisor says, "We've got a problem," then the task ahead looks formidable, maybe even insurmountable. But if instead he says, "We face a challenge," then your mind images are likely to be positive. You've got something to look forward to, something to really sink your teeth into. The point is simply this. Big thinkers are specialists in creating positive, forward-looking, optimistic pictures in their own minds and in the minds of others. To think big, we have to use words and phrases that produce big, positive mental images. So here are some examples of phrases that create negative, small mental images, followed by phrases that create big, positive ones. Listen to each of these and ask yourself in each case, what mind pictures do I see?
I've tried, but this product just won't sell. The fact is, people don't want it.
So far, I haven't been able to move this product, but I know it's good, and I'm going to find the formula that'll put it across.
I was in that business once, but it failed. Never again.
I went broke the first time, but I learned a lot from it. Now I'm ready to give it another shot.
Well, let's face it, this one's over. We're whipped.
This is far from over. Let's keep trying. Hey, I've got a great idea.
Did you notice the difference in the images that those phrases created? Now, listen to the words that you hear around you every day and see if you can perceive the difference between the images created by successful people and the images created by mediocre people. And while you're doing this, start developing your own big thinker's vocabulary. You can do it with these 4 steps. First, use big, positive, cheerful words and phrases to describe how you feel. Remember the cures for health excusitis? When you say, "I feel great," you make yourself feel better, and you make others around you feel better too. Say that you feel wonderful at every possible opportunity, and you'll begin to feel better, and bigger, and more successful. Second, use bright, cheerful, favorable words to describe other people. When you and someone else are discussing a third party who's not present, don't run that person down. Instead, go out of your way to compliment that person with big words and phrases, like, "They tell me she's working out fantastically well. Everybody's delighted she's here." Sooner or later, negative words will get back to the person in question, and that will only serve to cut you down. Next, use positive language to encourage others. Compliment people personally at every opportunity. Everyone craves praise. Have a special good word for your wife or husband every day. Notice and compliment the people who work with you and for you. Praise, sincerely administered, is a success tool. It's one we'll discuss more later. Learn to use this tool again and again. Finally, use positive words to outline plans to others. Go back to our list of negative and positive phrases from a few minutes ago. Make the positive images part of your vocabulary and weed out the negative ones. When people hear you say, "Here's some good news, we've got a genuine opportunity," then you'll get cooperation, enthusiasm, and success in return. But if you say, "Like it or not, we've got a job to do," then you're creating a dull, boring image, and people will react accordingly. So build castles with your words. Don't dig graves.
You create images in the minds of others with words. Now, I want to show you another kind of image creating that's a vital part of thinking big. Learn this skill well. Make it one of your primary success tools. The skill is simply this: learn to see what can be, not just what is. Big thinkers, all big thinkers, train themselves to see the potential in people and things and ideas, not just what exists right now. I have a friend who is a highly successful realtor. He specializes in rural property, and I'd like to take you on a brief outing with him to hear what he has to say about seeing the potential in things.
Oh, this is about 450 acres, kind of hilly as you can see. Scruffy undergrowth, a little skimpy secondary growth trees. Not exactly farm beautiful, is it? You know, most of the rural property around here is pretty run down like this. But I think I'm successful because I developed my entire sales plan around what this place can be. Now let me show you what I've done with this farm. I've spent 2 days just studying it and trying to imagine what it could be. Here we have 85 acres of bottomland, we got 115 acres of woods, about 200 acres of pasture, and we're 45 minutes from town, about a stone's throw from the freeway, and 35 miles from the airport. Well, I've asked myself, what's this farm good for? Well, here's one possibility. Here, this is a plan for a horse riding stable. I've got it all typed up here, you see. As you can see, we've got all the right ingredients. A rapidly growing city nearby. You can hear the construction from here. Lots of new families moving in. I mean, it's built and designed for families around here. Here's a report that states that the outdoor activities are the fastest growing recreational form that there is right now. You've got good pasture and some nice hills, and they're not too steep, right? You can support lots of horses right here. Grow your own barley, your own wheat and grain. That way, all of the revenue produced in this property stays right here for the profit of the buyer. With a minimal amount of landscaping, you could put in some trails, run them over the hills, down to the river. I mean, can't you see people riding their horses over the top of that hill, back up through the gorge? You see, this way, when I talk to prospects, I don't have to convince them that this place is a good buy just as it is. I can help them actually see it turned into a money-making venture. That has added bonuses, too. I can sell more farms and sell them faster this way. And on top of that, I can sell them usually for more money than my competitors. Because they're not just buying a farm. They're buying a farm and an idea.
Once again, the moral to this true story is this: look at things not as they are, but as they can be. Visualization, you see, adds value to everything. A big thinker always visualizes what can be done in the future and doesn't limit himself to the present. And always remember, this principle doesn't just apply to things. It applies to people as well. If you can see the potential in a customer who comes into your store and spends, say, $5, then you create the possibility that the customer will come back again and next time spend $500. If you drive through Skid Row and see just a bunch of broken down stumblebums and winos, then you're not thinking big. There are a few devoted individuals who can see in those Skid Row residents a lot of human potential. And because they can see this potential, those few people are able to help a lot of those unfortunate people get back on their feet. The best teachers are the ones who see Jimmy not as a little troublemaker who talks too much, but as an energetic, bright kid who needs a special challenge to get motivated. This teacher isn't seeing Jimmy as he is, but as Jimmy can be. Now, turn this idea inward and look at yourself. What about your own potential, your own worth? If you were to go in for salary negotiations with your boss tomorrow, how would you present yourself? Would you see yourself exactly as you are today? Or would you see the potential you have to offer, the executive you can be in 2 years, or the sales you can bring in over the next 5 years? Are you looking at yourself only in the present? Or do you see yourself as a person you can be at some point in the future? The way to develop the power to see what can be, not just what is to practice adding value to things, people, and ideas. Now, here are some exercises that will help you do this.
First, practice adding value to things. Remember the real estate salesman and ask yourself, what can I do to add value to this room, or this house, or this business? Look for ideas to make things worth more. Anything, whether it's a vacant lot, or a new house, or a business, has value in proportion to the ideas for using it. And practice adding value to people. As you move higher and higher in the world of success, more and more of your job will become people development. So ask, what can I do to add value to my subordinates? How can I help them be more effective? Remember, to bring out the best in a person, you must first visualize their best. And finally, practice adding value to yourself. Conduct a daily interview with yourself and ask, what can I do to make myself more valuable today? Visualize yourself not as you are, but as you can be. Then, specific ways for attaining your potential value will begin to suggest themselves.
There is no such thing as a perfectly smooth, trouble-free road to success. You can be sure there are plenty of bumps on everyone's path to fulfillment. Nothing worthwhile comes easily. But there is something that you can do that will help to at least smooth out some of these minor bumps, and I can sum it up for you in one short sentence. Don't concern yourself with trivia. Now that sounds simple, but the fact is that it's often much easier to get caught up in trivia than to avoid it, simply because of our habits. For example, ask yourself this question. Why do people quarrel? At least 90% of our quarrels are over trivial concerns. Somebody's late, or somebody forgot to buy something at the store, or somebody bought the wrong brand. Now, to become a big thinker, you need to eliminate as many of these bumps and potholes from your personal road to success as you can. So the next time a trivial matter comes up, ask yourself, is this really important? Does it really matter which route I take to the airport? Does it really matter if someone forgets to put the cap on the toothpaste? Is it really important that your spouse invited someone to the party you don't like or squandered a little bit too much money? When you fix your mental gaze on the big picture and remember the goal that you're working toward, success, fulfillment, and happiness, you'll find that many of these potential quarrels simply aren't important enough to warrant an argument. Just asking that question, is it really important, works wonders at the office, too. It works in the traffic going home when another driver tries to cut you off. It works when you might get the smallest office in the renovation plan. It works when you overlook the small, annoying habits of your fellow workers. And it works when you're solving problems, or counseling employees, or making decisions about your career. Just don't get caught up in trivia. Concentrate on the important issues and remember your goals. Let me offer you a few examples of petty thinking versus big thinking.
First situation, working out expense accounts. The petty thinker will figure out ways to increase his income by chiseling or even cheating on expense accounts. The big thinker will figure out ways to increase his income by selling more merchandise and regard the expense account as just that, an expense account. On the idea of progress, the petty thinker believes in the status quo and in taking no chances. The big thinker believes in ideas, expansion, new challenges. On the matter of security, the petty thinker is preoccupied with security problems. The big thinker regards security as a natural companion of success and doesn't worry about it. The petty thinker magnifies minor errors and turns them into big issues. The big thinker ignores errors of little consequence and strives to learn from significant mistakes. So let's briefly sum up some of the tools for thinking big. Don't sell yourself short. Conquer the foe of self-deprecation. Concentrate on your assets. You're really a lot better than you think you are. Use the big thinker's vocabulary. Use big, bright, cheerful words. Use words that promise victory, hope, happiness, pleasure. Avoid words that create images of failure, defeat, and hopelessness. Stretch your vision. See what can be, not just what is. Practice adding value to things, to people, and especially to yourself. Get the big view of your job and of your life. Think, really believe that your present job is important and that you're important too. That next promotion depends mostly on how you think towards your present job. Finally, keep your mind above trivial things. Focus your attention on big objectives. Before getting involved in a petty matter, ask yourself, is it really important?